Let's have a quick little discussion segment here because um there is a few things that I definitely want to go through. I think one of the main things here that I wanted to discuss a couple of weeks ago, but I just didn't figure out a place to like fit it in the show. But what we'll be talking about today is um writing and writers actually. So let me get situated here, and we're gonna have a little chit chat about this because this is a topic that I kind of thought about the other day, but I was like, shit, like how are we gonna talk about this? But regardless, this is an interesting topic here. So one thing that I noticed, and before I get into this topic, I do want to say, I might be biased here because I am a writer, right? But when it comes down to not Music Mondays, right? Because the Music Mondays community is very grateful for all the things that we do. But I do see artists get coverage on other platforms, right? And not just Music Mondays, pretty much anywhere in the underground or independent media, right? Um, I see a lot of people getting either articles written about them, interviews, blurbs, shout outs, anything like that. And some artists will completely ego certain platforms for whatever reason. And I think that's such a negative thing, to be honest with you, because, if somebody like a writer or a journalist or anything like that um, goes out of their way to write about your art and your music, right? The least you could do is at least share it or comment or say thank you or anything like that. I see a lot of artists, and not even mainstream artists either. Like, I see a lot of like, tier two, tier three artists kind of doing this. And it's just like, you're benefiting from that because you can use, said article or interview to embed on your website. You can repost it. You can put it in your resume. You can put it in, a folder X, Y, or Z, right? Like a lot of those things are reusable when it comes down to interviews and reviews and things like that. So again, if you're a new artist out there, kind of like egoing platforms, that really benefits nobody. You know what I mean? Because you have content right there with your name on it, and somebody's trying to praise you, and you're ignoring it, which is fine for mainstream artists. Not really, but it's still fine in that aspect because usually, they're dealing with like major platforms anyways, right? Like the Breakfast Club and yada yada yada. So when it comes down to like tier two and like tier three artists, right? Like underground independent artists kind of coming up, any media is good media, and don't get it twisted. Writers can be fucking douchebags. You know what I mean? Like writers can absolutely suck and say some fucking stupid shit because they don't know music or art or anything like that. So don't get me wrong. Like writers aren't exactly the greatest either. But if you come across an article or an interview or a video that somebody does about you, share that shit. And it's beneficial for both parties, right? But it's more beneficial for you because you know you can reuse that content in multiple ways, right? Especially like video interviews or text interviews, or there's so many different ways to kind of reuse that content and kind of show love to everybody and show your supporters that you're actually getting some coverage from platforms that actually give a fuck about you, right? So again, if you get a random article written about you or a YouTube video or anything like that, the least you could do is share it and let people know that you're actually getting covered out here, right? And again, that's not really something that's happened at Music Mondays, but just being an observer, right? Obviously, being a manager is like my full time job. So I'm on the internet all the time, and I see this a lot from like mid tier artists or kind of tier one, tier two, where they're just kind of coming up and they just feel like they have an ego or blah 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 blah, whatever the case may be. But definitely drop that for sure, just because I think it's really beneficial for you to kind of reuse that media that somebody went out of their way to kind of write about or talk about you. You know what I mean? Just like how you see people use the Music Mondays podcast clips for their own promo. That's like why we do this. That's like that makes me happy seeing people post their reviews and being like, yeah, blah 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 blah, because everybody eats when it comes down to that. You know what I mean? So I think that shit's like super super fucking important. And again, if you're kind of like more of like a super poppin' artist, like obviously this doesn't apply to you, but if you're coming up, like any coverage is good coverage. You know what I mean? Any coverage is good coverage, 100%. So make sure you show your writers and your journalists some love, man. And again, not the ones who are uninformed, not the assholes, not the people that are just writing clickbait articles or anything like that. The real writers that go out of their way to kind of break down your music and break down your art, definitely show them love. You know what I mean? Because they definitely keep the ecosystem flowing as well, for sure, especially from that non creative kind of aspect, right? I mean, obviously, writing is an art, when it comes down to journalism, that helps everybody, especially if it's like a positive piece, right? So, just some food for thoughts, something that I really thought about, not too long ago. But again, let us know what you think. This will be uploaded on the Music Mondays YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe. We're only 10 subs away from 330. And of course, we upload every Thursday, every Saturday, full podcast episodes, exclusive segments, and a whole lot of good jazz over there on the channel. Make sure you go show these artists in this channel some love. Let's get it, baby.